Hello, friends. Welcome to Vinyl Junkies, episode 46. We're here with Kim. Kim!
Hi, Sam. Jumbo.
Jambo! We got an action-packed show today. Lots to talk about. Lots of replacement talk. We had a poll concerning the replacements, and we asked you guys to choose your favorite replacements record. And we have the results of that poll. We'll talk about it. Kim and I, it looks like we had a different pick for our favorite, Kim and me. From there, we're also, you guys should probably tune in on Monday, Tuesday. We're going to do a show with Billy. You remember what it is that we spoke about last week about just the difference in quality of jackets? And we talked about Joni Mitchell. One jacket's really nice and the other one isn't. Why is it? Well, Billy, we asked around and we got some answers to that. Yeah.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but did you check the feed? Because it looks to me like I'm taking up the entire window on mine.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, I know.
I mean, I'm not that good looking, but that's entirely possible. You know why? Because I didn't live it properly. But I like that. I like that.
No, I can't see you at all.
No, but now you're going to see me real soon. Listen, it's a beautiful thing. You're a beautiful woman. Trust me. You're better looking than I am. I'm a fucking disaster here. So,
there we go.
We're going to have this discussion with Billy Fields from Warner Brothers about why there's no consistency in the vinyl. And he has some really great ideas. We'll talk about pressing. So, those of you that want to know why some of your records are shitty and why some of them are good, we're probably going to be able to at least address some of those questions. And we welcome your questions. You guys are spending the money on the records, right? We want to know what you think. Tune in Monday, Tuesday. Let us know. Billy and I will be there to answer your questions. Then, I'm going to stop the monologue soon, Kim. I promise. Just trying to set up what's coming up. We got Jazz Talk coming up real soon because we got a John Coltrane record coming, Kamasi record, so much. And lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you guys a story about jazz royalty and about Thelonious Monk. And it's a really cool story that I think you're going to like. I hope I tell it well, but stick around. I'll tell that at the end of the story. So if you guys want a really cool story that involves the richest family ever, the Rothschilds, and involves Thelonious Monk and Charlie Parker and a whole bunch of great jazz stories, wait till the end. I got that for you. Sweet. So, Kim, thanks for putting up with those 3 minutes. Tell me, how have you been? What have you been listening to?
Okay, I have something to talk about the awesomeness of the music, but how we've been talking about packaging and things like that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I pre-ordered the Jazzmatazz Volume 1.
Oh, shit.
Box set, because I have Volume 2, an original. I've never been able to find Volume 1, but now I think you can get it I think they reissued as a single.
Volume 1, Volume 2, the original, was that on a single or a double? Because Volume 2 was reissued recently by VMP, and it was a double. Was the original a single?
I think mine is a single. You know, I should have dug it out. It's a single, but it might have been in a gatefold. Oh, shit, I should have looked. I don't even know where it is right now. But I do have one of those came into the record store, and I bought it. It was not inexpensive, but I was like, holy shit.
You have to have it. I got it. So I've been curious about that. Go for it, because like I said, just VMP put out a double LP of that. Okay, and I believe it was the first reissue, and this comes maybe 6 months, 9 months after that. I'm curious to see what the difference is between the two. Go for it.
Okay, so of course I ordered this. I've been dying to own this, and sure. I mean, you know, box set, right? Okay, so for one thing, so it's thick. It's 3 albums. I like the color coding. Matches this. And a booklet. However, there's some issues here. The bottom feels like it could just, like it's a flap out. That's not going to hold up really well.
It's going to get damaged on your shelves.
Something is going to happen there.
Gotcha.
On the side, see that seam? I don't know if you can see that seam. See that seam right there?
Yeah, there's like a little white line.
Yeah, that's a fold out this way. So, okay, now to get these records out, oh my God, what a pain in the.
I got you, man. Instantly, I think of Thundercat as you're doing that. Instantly, I think about Thundercat's last record, Drunk. That 10-inch EP box set was gorgeous, but a complete pain in the ass to deal with. You got it.
So the only way I can get these out is to go pull the middle one out, right? Okay, so I got the middle. Hang on. I know this is. I'm trying to show how frustrating this is.
No problem. Record number 2.
Okay,
That
so
was
I get one out.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Now I've got all 3 out. Okay, so the inside, and I know this is probably not translating real well, but it's a double. This is folded over. This is 2 thickness. Like you can feel the air in between the top and the bottom.
Okay. You're talking about the
So,
box right outside because it's housed in a box set.
Yeah, that's the whole box. That's the top load right there. You can even see light coming through where I said that bottom flap is going to be a problem.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so this is thickness though. It's like a record that's been folded over, a jacket that's been folded over.
Okay.
Okay, so and then it came with this corner dinged, which everybody knows I have a huge high tolerance for stuff like that. Like it doesn't really bother me, but it makes it even harder to get all these fucking records out, and even one of them is dinged on that corner. So I'm frustrated with the box set. However,
the music.
Okay, that's the original, whatever, Jazzmatazz.
Gotcha. 180 gram, by the way? Is it 180 gram?
It's got to be. Yeah, it's 180.
What do they sound like?
Sounds fucking amazing.
And who put them out?
Which is the most important thing to me. I mean, this is dead silent, no whoosh. I can hear the highs and the lows, and I hear things in there that I haven't heard before.
Gotcha.
Right?
Who put it out, by the way?
What was the name of it? It was Virgin and Universal Music Company.
Okay. So it was
and so there's one that's a bonus tracks.
Okay.
So this is mostly remixes of the existing songs plus a few other things. This is awesome. I mean, that's awesome to have. Then the original album, but instrumental.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's worth the price of admission, I would say.
The bonus is too. And then the only other thing in there, which I'm glad that they included it, although I wish it'd be something more, was a little booklet. There's the front. There's the back.
Yeah, that's what he says, right? The interludes.
Yeah.
And the way he starts, that's what he says.
And it's exactly. And it's just like pictures. The very back has the albums, the track listings. And I mean, this is nice, but something to look at while you're listening to it. So again, I'm so happy to finally have this. I'm so happy to have the music, and the pressings are beautiful. This box set can suck it though. What a pain in my ass trying to get those records in and out of there.
I can't stand bad box sets, man. I hate them. My Slayer box set is going to be destroyed by the time I'm done with it. It's just, it gets moved around so much. Mm-hmm. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stop listening to my Slayer records because I want to keep the box in VG++ condition? It's like, fuck no. The box comes off the shelf all the time. It's a very heavy box too, so the bottom of it gets all scratched up and stuff. And yeah.
I think what I'm going to do is keep the booklet in there, keep the records out, individually sleeve those records, and keep this up display or something.
By the way,
because
do you know?
Yeah, I'm going to listen to these records, but I cannot put them in and out of this nonsense. Holy
do you know?
Shit.
Do you know where the typography comes from for the front, the Jazzmatazz, where they got that off? That comes from like Art Blakey records. That's right.
Okay, I have read that. And it looks like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It looks exactly like that. Pretty cool. The MC Solar track is really good, man. There's this French, I believe he was from Paris, this hip-hopper from the 90s.
What was his name? Yeah, I know what you're
talking about. His name is MC Solar.
Yes.
MC Solar. And he put out a solo album. Here in Quebec, it sold well because we have a big French-Canadian population. But dude, this guy could rap. Like, he could just spit rhymes. And it was the same kind of vibe. The album, a lot of it was the same type of vibe as Jazzmatazz. So it had a lot of the jazz vibe as well. And his flow tended to be very kind of baritone-y and kind of chill, very much like Guru. So I'm pretty sure that's why they chose to work together. There's this album, his first record called Qui sème le vent récolte le tempo. He who sows the wind reaps the tempo, or something like this. This record has never been reissued, and I wonder if anybody's going to put it out, and if the fact that it's a French hip-hop record, if it's going to kind of stop it from people putting it out. And it would be too bad, because I think it's a gem of a record of 90s hip-hop, and very, very much a big piece of that whole jazzmatazz, that whole fusion of jazz, funk, and R&B and hip-hop all together during that period.
Yeah, like, okay, so, I talked about Jazzmatazz forever. It's Guru is his name. Yeah. Guru did Jazzmatazz. Mm-hmm. But that Le Bien Le Mal song that we're talking about for MC Solar.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite songs on that whole album. I would sure as shit buy one of his French hip-hop albums. I'm all about that.
His first record, his second record's good too. I don't know anything beyond that, but his first one, Qui sème le vent récolte le tempo, is just unbelievable. I would be overjoyed to see a reissue of that happen. So you guys out there in subscription land, and the companies that are watching this, make it happen if you know where the rights holders are. Kim and I will sure as shit get behind it, because...
Oh my God, yeah, I would push that so hard.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what's really cool too? You haven't gotten your VMP box. This kind of segues into the hip-hop thing. Have you gotten your VMP box yet? Okay, I'm curious to see what you're going to get. You're going to get it before me because you're in the States, but... I got the email. The email always excites me, right? Because it tells me what's in it. So... MF Doom Special Herbs Volume 1, 2, 3, and 4 is in there.
Really?
Yeah, because they went really heavy on the Doom catalog. Like, there's tons of stuff. I believe they even have the box, just the whole Special Herbs thing, which is, if you buy all 5 volumes, I think it's $100 or something, but they have it reduced to 90 if you get all of them. Dude, every one of those is a double album. That's crazy. Lot of wax, man. That's a lot of wax.
Lot of wax.
Dude, I get excited. I do
too. I mean, I'm in.
So and I know there's stuff that they didn't send all of them, but now I know myself, we go crazy. We're going to look for the other ones. But I have a couple of volumes of that. The TV on the radio is supposed to be coming through. MF Doom's new album, Born Like This, which I'm really curious to see what that's about. The advanced reviews don't seem to be very good, but that never matters.
Yeah, I don't care about advanced reviews.
Yeah,
I mean, unless we're doing it.
They did the, they poo-pooed the latest Dr. Octagon record, and I've had a lot more time to listen to it since I last spoke about it. Dude, man, it's part of the pool mix and it fits. It's good. It's good, man. What's wrong with sounding old? I like sounding old.
Hi, me too. Yeah. A Place to Bury Strangers, that band that I never shut up about, sounds like an old Wall of Sound, Jesus and Mary Chain kind of band. Ain't nothing wrong with it.
You know what's been happening to me since we've been doing these shows together and just communicating? I'm beginning to understand post-punk, or at least beginning to develop an idea of post-punk, and I'm beginning to be able to pick out elements. And that could probably lead us right into our poll that we held in the Vinyl Junkies group. By the way, look, those of you that listen to the podcast or just watch the broadcast here, we do have a private Facebook group with rules and stuff, but if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty and nerd out on records with people who are there to nerd out, not to fuck around type of thing, it's a virtual live Wikipedia of all things music. It's a deep well of knowledge. Just look for our group on for Vinyl Junkies on Facebook, and you'll find us. Read the rules, though. Anyway, what we did there is... do you have something to say?
No, I said read the rules. I was
read the
reinforcing.
rules. No.
Okay, go on.
What it is that we did is we ran a poll because Billy sent a big old box of records, and in that box was those Joni Mitchell records, but there was the entire Replacements discography as well.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
And I didn't know. I don't know. I didn't. Okay, I guess it's now I didn't. I didn't know the Replacements besides some kind of vague connection to the grunge movement. That's all I kind of knew. And all of a sudden I have all of these records. And all right, let's see what this is all about. And rather than hide the fact, that, oh, these guys, I didn't know who they were. No, man, I didn't. What it is that we did is we created a discussion with it, and it's like, hey, guys, you know what? Let's follow this along while I'm listening to these now classic records. Some of these records are in the Rolling Stone Top 500 Records of All Time. And I'm listening to them for the very, very, very first time. And I realized that what it is that I wanted most of that, why it is that I enjoy just coming out and saying, dude, I don't know this stuff, is because I like listening to what you guys have to say. All you guys start talking about the record that you like and why you like them, and all the stories start coming out. And that's exactly what happened. And it was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome.
So we made a poll. Which is your favorite Replacements record? And you can pick only one. And we came down to the final four. And Kim and I will discuss. First of all, thoughts, Kim. Because you know the Replacements far more than I do.
I mean, they're one of those bands that progress. Like the first parts of it are more punk, and then we get more pop and a little more refined and a little bit slicker. I have always preferred the very first album, which again I should have looked for. I scored an original first press of that early this year.
Sorry, Ma, forgot to take out the trash. Showing it now.
Yes, that one. Which, I mean, when I saw that record, I got chills all over me. I'm like, oh my God, that's a unicorn. You just don't see original first presses of that. And I love Tim. Those are my two favorites. I mean, Bastards of Young, I think, is an absolutely perfect song. Like I cannot flaw Bastards of Young. And I can listen to that song and want to go out and just tear things up and destroy and change the world. And, it's one of those pump you up kind of songs for me.
It's one of those songs that will make you stop the world and melt with you.
Oh, yeah.
You see how sweet I am? So that was your favorite. You picked Tim as the favorite. Did I
pick Tim?
You did pick Tim.
Yeah.
You definitely picked Tim.
Okay.
And that wound up in the top four. So we will reveal that. Mine didn't appear in the top, wasn't number one either. But I just want to say beforehand, there's a very, very, very distinct difference with those first two. And again, I've listened to all of these records maximum 3 times. Okay?
Right.
So that's the sum total of my experience. But now I'm happy because I feel like I'm part of the conversation, and I'm able to understand the context in which Paul Westerberg fans speak or Chris Mars fans speak. I now can understand the pieces of it, even though I can't really contribute much, But I've noticed those first 2 records, just Sorry Ma and Stink, it's a different band. It's a completely different band.
Yeah, well, they were starting. That's their beginnings.
I like it, but it's a different thing. It seems to me like fans who would buy that are not the same fans that would buy stuff that came afterwards, is what I'm saying.
Well, you know what? We bought them because I bought them back then too. And then there was a lot of bitching about the changes and selling out and whatever. But I was just like, man, the Replacements are awesome and I'm going to stick with them.
In other words, the Metallica argument.
Yes.
We always come back to the Metallica argument. Okay, so tell me, where did they jump the shark according to fans? This is what I want to know.
Oh, What was that?
All Shook Down.
Maybe.
All Shook Down's the
Maybe.
last one. Anyway, the one I picked is the one I'm showing right now. It's Let It Be. And actually, was it Let It Be that I picked?
Yeah, that was the one you picked.
It was the one I picked, eh? It was between Let It Be and Pleased to Meet Me. I wasn't sure. So I played them back and forth. You see, again, I don't know the records well enough. It's the one with it's the one with the Kiss cover. That's how I know this record. Black Diamond. Yes. And that wasn't number one either, Kim.
What was number one on the poll?
So this is the way it went down. Number 4 on the poll was Sorry Ma, Forgot to Take Out the Trash.
Okay.
Very, very close split by only 2 votes was number 3, your pick, Tim.
Okay.
Number 2 was my pick, which was Let It Be, which I guess I'll talk more about. And number 1 was, by a fair, a decent margin, was Pleased to Meet Me. People seem to like to Pleased to Meet Me most. These, by the way, are all available as reissues. They were reissued only in like 2016, 2017. It's Rhino, so you will see them around, and they're nice. They're nice. They're good reissues. I gotta say, I'm happy with them. You know.
I'm stoked because like I said, I've never been able to find a copy of Stink.
And that's the one you want?
Well, I'll probably buy Pleased to Meet Me. I don't think I have a copy. I don't have that on vinyl. I have it on CD. So I'm just happy that they're all done or all out there. It's very cool.
Everything, yeah, it's all there. Yeah, so I, by the third time, I don't know titles or anything, but I started taking down a couple of notes. This will be my contribution to this burgeoning replacements conversation for me. But by 1983, the band would sometimes perform a set of cover songs intended to antagonize whoever was in the audience. You see, that's one of the things that caught my... That's one of the things, I guess, that piqued my interest was... it seems like during their transition from this punk band to... really good songwriters, ultimately, they went out of their way to piss off and alienate the fans that were before by basically telling them, you guys talk about being different, but you know what, the minute somebody's even the slightest bit different, everyone,
you're not interested, or you want to talk shit.
Frank Zappa. It always comes down to the Frank Zappa story. I don't know if I've told this before, right? But Frank Zappa, during a concert, was at some kind of not a frat house, but a university type thing, right? A university type situation. And he was playing a show. So what he does is, audience participation was a large part of what Zappa did. What he did was he decided that while the band was playing and performing, he would conduct the audience and have them go through a complex series of calisthenics.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they did. And the thing is that he knew what he was doing. He sneered at his own audience, especially at the end, close to the end of his career. He sneered at it, and the only reason he was making rock and roll is so that he can fund his more expensive synclavier projects. But the big quote, I believe, which is in Helsinki, you can't do that on stage, volume 2. I think that's where it comes from. But at one point, there's a concert that's being taped, and somebody talks about a uniform, yells out something about a uniform, like some statement about conformity. And Frank Zappa's answer very clearly is, everyone here is wearing a uniform. Don't fool yourself. And that's kind of absolutely true. Sometimes we get so caught up in our own bubble of the music that we listen to that it's not that it doesn't exist out there, but it's almost like it takes something in order to go out of what we're normally comfortable with, the parameters that we're used to. Does that make sense?
Yes. And, sometimes, I don't want to use the Metallica argument, but okay, like with the replacements, I followed them through, and I like some stuff more than others, but I could see what they were doing and I could appreciate it, and I was cool with it. And some bands do it and you feel like they're just doing it just to dick with their fans or something, like something's going on and they're just kind of like throwing fingers, which is fine. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do, but that doesn't mean we necessarily have to like that
Gigi
output.
Allen much?
I got to see Gigi Allen one time. Did I tell you that?
No, that's got to be a story.
Ugh. Anyway,
I hope you didn't get hit, man.
no. I didn't get hit. I got very far away. Anyway, I respect a band. It's so ridiculous for us to put them in this box and expect them to never get out of that box. And if they never get out of that box and they produced as like the same kind of music, like say 20 across a 20-year span, then we talk shit about them, how they just, it just sounds so old and blah blah blah. If they're in that box and then they start breaking that box apart, then people get pissed that they're not still in that box. Like a band can't win. So
Correct.
I think most of the ones are the smart ones or the successful ones. Just do what they want to do. Do it how they want to do it. And people can come along for the ride or not.
Or not.
New people will like the new stuff or not. Because, yeah. I mean, Sleep has, those 2 albums, Dope Smoker and The Sciences. You can tell it's the same band, but it's not the same exact music. But they're very successful in still being, like, it's very recognizably Sleep.
Yes.
Even though it's over that huge span.
Certainly.
So... You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm rambling. Go on.
Yes, you are. And that's okay because I'm usually the guy who does all of that. Actually, we're going to have a good metal show probably next week. So if you want to get your metal on, Kim, next week would probably be good. Also in that VMP box is Nails, a reissue from Relapse, Abandon All Life. I can't wait for that to come in. And
cool.
The next 3 King Diamond picture discs are coming in, including Conspiracy, which I can't wait for. So we're probably the next week, if you feel like it. Are you a King Diamond fan? Because maybe we can...
I am. I don't know if I only have maybe 1 or 2 of his things on vinyl, but I most of my stuff's on CD.
Okay, no, but that counts. I mean, that counts. The music is what I'm saying, right? Like
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we might maybe do the same thing with Replacements and see what we can do with King Diamond, and maybe give you poll results next week in timing with these picture discs that are coming out. I can't wait. I love Conspiracy. So metal, we're getting our metal on, and I ordered I'm not sure it's going to come on time, but I ordered a Manowar record on Discogs, and I hope it comes on time.
Cool. Well, maybe I'll hold off on talking about the new metal album that I got and save it for next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brand new.
And I got the new STB Records box also, so I'll be talking about Toke. We got a good metal show next week.
Okay.
So yeah, Let It Be. Why did I like it? First of all, one thing that I noticed immediately is there is no doubt that listening to it this many years, listening to the Replacements discography this many years after the fact, is a completely radically different experience. Okay, first of all, this stuff all came out in the 80s. I would have never liked it. I was way too full on metal, and this was the antithesis of everything I liked. Okay. Secondly, their songwriting, just at points it was crazy, all of the stuff that it reminded me of, but it didn't surprise me. I didn't check the songs out while listening to Let It Be. I kind of make sure that I don't know what the hits are or whatever, and just put it aside so I can listen to the record for the first time. Dude, A6 at the end of side A, Black Diamond comes on by Kiss, and it's like,
yeah,
fucking yes. I didn't know, and it's like, fucking yes. I didn't know if it was going to be good, bad, but now I wanted to know. Because, first of all, it means that they acknowledge that Kiss wasn't a fucking garbage band, especially those first 3 records are riff machines that you can make stoner anthems around those songs. And the Melvins did, and other bands did. But the Replacements, I was really anxious to hear it, and I loved it. And then I listened a little further, and what was it? Which song? Yeah, B1. B1, I turn it around, and the acoustic intro to Unsatisfied is exactly the same as Kiss's Hard Luck Woman.
Mm.
And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. So now, when I hear this song, when I hear the song Unsatisfied, I hear Hard Luck Woman. And I have one more question for you.
What's that?
My daughter's going to high school. She's 12 now. The mixtape. I have a question about the mixtape because I'd like to put some of these replacements songs on the mixtape.
Oh.
And
Whew.
Gary's Got a Boner is a really catchy song. Come on, you know what I'm saying, right? It's a catchy song.
It is, but yeah.
It's sophomoric, and I mean, listen, let's face it. You remember when you were that age, firstly, and secondly, she's going to come across it anyway. So what do? Do I include Gary's Got a Boner on the summer mixtape or not? Do I include Kendrick on the mixtape?
I mean, that's a personal parental decision. I don't have kids, so I don't know what to tell you. I know that when I was 13, when we moved to the States, a boy gave me a cassette that had Controversy and Dirty Minds, Prince's album, on it.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, yeah, I hid that from my parents. Hi, Dad. So it's not like I mean, that was in the 80s too. It's not like she's not aware. It's just how comfortable you are with it and being willing to talk about it. I'm
absolutely comfortable talking about it because we talk to her just like we talk to anybody else. I mean, I think my wife and I are cognizant about the conversations and the maturity level, but you know what, man, once you get into high school, it's all going to be there. You remember, right? And I remember listening back then, my thing, you were talking about Prince. For me, it was all the quote unquote satanic music of 80s heavy metal, right? With my aunt really in my mother's ear about that. So it kind of felt exhilarating.
I remember hiding Sabbath and Priest and stuff like that from my parents.
I remember that stuff, and remember pretty clearly there's no chance in the world that this music will ever make me kill myself, because they're somehow connecting Stained Class with, it's just, it never clicked with me, those two things. But the fact that, although it wasn't a cartoonish way, Satan and all of these things were being discussed, stuff that's the opposite of good was being discussed, gave it a certain quality that made a young guy, naturally curious towards it.
Or girl, because I was the same way. I mean, in the midst of satanic panic and my parents being missionaries, I was all about, like, what is that forbidden fruit? I want some of that. So,
yeah.
I feel you. So, I mean, she's 12. It depends on her level of maturity and how comfortable you are. If you're comfortable with it, then, and you think she's, mature enough to understand the whatever nuances and humor, then go for it, I say.
I think that I think you lay it down because it's going to be laid down at one point or another. But if it's in a situation where you can at least have a conversation about it, namely in a swimming pool while you're kind of just lounging around, I think that's a cool thing. You know what I mean? And when you have the entire summer, at least that's the way it is that I see it, right? When you have the entire summer, it's kind of like you can, expand the conversation. And the idea of expanding the conversation with my kid over music is the most amazing thing in the world. Do you have those things, those special mixtapes that you immediately associate with this friend or that experience or that camping trip?
Oh, yeah. Well, not necessarily mixtapes. We would just bring a million CDs. Well, back in the 80s, we would do actual mixtapes, like full-on cassettes. But there's definitely songs or groups of songs or groups of artists that I immediately associate. Like my friend Kitty, who lives in Seattle now.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot hear the Smiths or Depeche Mode or The Cure and a few other bands and Duran Duran without thinking of her, because we used to drive together to school in her car and listen to that music nonstop.
Gotcha.
nonstop. So I have anytime I hear any of those bands, I just have this. I feel like she's there, you know.
Actually, there's one that kind of ties into Run Out Groove, but their latest title got voted in, Luna. Okay, they put out a record by Luna, double LP, got voted in as the next album that they're going to press. But what they did is they added another one into the mix, and it's one that I'm really excited about. Were you a fan of Juliana Hatfield?
Yeah, I like to. Yeah,
Only
sure,
Everything.
absolutely. Yeah.
Only Everything. I mean, now, they're making a big deal out of Whip Smart and those. And, of course, rightfully so. And supposedly she's really crushing it live. It's really a tour that's going very well for her. But Run Out Groove just included the fourth album, if you count the Juliana Hatfield 3, but Only Everything. And I played this record, this CD, because it's never been released on vinyl, I think.
Yeah.
I played it to death, dude. To death. I can't wait. Like, I don't vote for anything, but this was one of those things that I can remember very specifically making a mixtape. We were going to go out and camp and do some canoe camping and do a bunch of mushrooms and smoke a bunch of weed and drink a bunch of beers like we do. And for me, listen, you have to have a radio. Now that I'm older, I think about it and it's like, oh, fuck, those are the assholes who were playing the radio in the middle of the forest. Not cool, but we were the assholes. We were the assholes who were getting drunk and listening to the radio and dancing around the fire naked. That's what we did. Because alcohol is a dirty, dirty, dirty thing. It is Satan. And I remember we need a mixtape. And I put on a whole bunch of Juliana Hatfield on there. And this guy I don't speak to anymore because, it's 25 years ago, but who looks like one of the members of CCR on the Greatest Hits album. He was the big drug dude there. And at one point he just turned around and he looked at me and he gave me a nod, a knowing nod. And all was right with the world for just a second, Kim. And that's why I want Juliana Hatfield's Only Everything to come out. True story.
Yeah, I'd like to have that on vinyl too. Yeah, she's just solid. I don't know what bad thing you can say about Juliana Hatfield. I mean, she may not be your cup of tea, but
I agree.
Badass.
I think that people, yeahs and that kind of thing. It's all precluded by the Blondies of the world, and Julia. Anyway, the whole list, list.
So speaking of badass women, my friend Paul, Paul, thank you, Paul, found the final Grace Jones album that I needed to complete the studio albums for me up in Minneapolis. So now, Warm Leatherette.
You have them all. When was it released?
1980 on Island. So this album is not particularly rare and it's not worth a lot of money, but I have been literally looking for this for almost 2 years now to find in the wild because I get like that. I can't order it on Discogs like a normal person. I have to find it. Paul found it.
I completely understand that.
I have really big hangups about it. It's the dumbest thing ever, but it is what it is, and I just accept it. So,
record collectors are weird, man. We're ritualistic, so finding it in the wild counts more.
I love Grace Jones more than I love unicorns or ice cream or anything else. Like, she, to me, is the ultimate badass goddess. Hyperbole, over-exaggeration, whatever. I love her so much. So I'm so stoked to finally, this is the last one that I needed. There is one, the very last one that was called Hurricane was released on CD, and then there's some unofficial one that was released on vinyl that's like $450. That's never going to happen. So anyway, I've got all the studio albums, plus I've got a bunch of 12 inches and weird extra stuff. But the cool thing about this one, now Grace Jones, this is the fourth album. The first three were more disco, because she was really big disco kind of queen, had a very large gay following. This one, she went in a slightly different direction. It's on Island, so Chris Blackwell had a lot to do with this album. And she enlisted like Sly and Robbie and a bunch of other, because she's Jamaican.
Oh, that's the one, okay.
Guys. But this one has a bunch of covers on it, including Breakdown by Tom Petty, and
Really?
Love is the Drug, Roxy Music.
Yeah, that I knew about.
Oh, I mean, Roxy Music is way, way up there in my top too. So I'm just very excited. I think I'm going to take the records out. And I'm finally going to go buy those stupid record frames. I've been waiting for this album because I'm going to put all the Grace Jones together because all of her covers are amazing.
Yep.
Some are Andy
Well, the
Warhol,
reason
some are photography,
at one
blah, blah,
point,
blah.
at one point, I was looking at the roof of the record cave because I have some Grace Jones album covers just stapled to the wall. So she is very much a part of this record cave. That while you were talking about her, you actually I thought you might choke up. That's probably the most emotional I've ever heard you.
I mean, when he gave that to me, I was like, oh, finally. And I still haven't seen, there's a documentary that's been showing in various kind of art housey things, Bambi and Rose, or whatever it's called. But there's a documentary, and I still haven't seen it. I'm like the world's biggest Grace Jones
You've read
fan.
the book, right?
And I met her one time.
Oh, I know. I was gonna cue you up. You got to tell that story. Now's the time.
No.
Come on, you have to.
I met her at the Stark Club. There's a famous club here in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
It was Philip Stark. Stevie Nicks was involved. Grace Jones was involved, and I met Grace Jones and got to tell her that I love her one time. It was awesome.
And what did she do?
Nothing. We're not talking about that.
Oh. Kim has good Grace Jones stories. You have so many good stories.
I'm going to be polite and not. Anyway, I've met her. I love her. Thank you, Paul, for completing my. Gosh, she's a goddess. Gotcha. Okay, moving on.
So, what I'm going to talk about now was something that I didn't even know that I was going to talk about before I actually got up in the morning. I'm going to tell the jazz story. I'm going to talk about jazz royalty. Kathleen Ann Panonica Rothschild, a.k.a. the Jazz Baroness, who I did not know about. But are you familiar with her at all, Panonica?
Yeah, a little bit, just from reading a lot of stuff about the Rothschilds. Yeah,
okay.
It's been a while, but yeah.
There we go. I never read anything about the Rothschilds. And actually, if I had to say, of all the really, really big jazz, giants, probably the one that I've paid least attention to is Thelonious Monk. I mean, I still got a dozen records, but still, I've always looked at the other guys more. Maybe because it's something that I didn't understand. Like his quote, and I'm going to do this on, here is like, if this is a piano and I'm just kind of like pretending it's a piano and it goes from here to here, what it is that we got to try to do is take the music here, like off the keyboard. And that's kind of exactly that missing link that always made Thelonious Monk this language, this almost exotic thing to me that I didn't quite understand. It was melodic and you could listen to it, but it's kind of like, there were kind of like these individual notes that, I don't know, didn't flow as well as, let's say, a Bill Evans or something. It just wasn't that obvious to me, right? So I was thinking about this as I was at my buddy's house. We were just watching some fights, UFC, and we started talking about Joni Mitchell, and he's a bass player, so we started talking about Jaco Pastorius, and I got to thinking about jazz. Yes, I think about music all the time. And in my own head, I was kind of self-satisfied, thinking to myself, I really like my jazz stacks, and realized I hadn't played a lot of my jazz records in a long time. So I had to go to them. And as I was trying to pick my records today, I'm not sure what it was, but just all of a sudden, do you ever wake up and you have a song in your head?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
And it's not earworm song. I mean, there's the earworm song, but there's just something that just pops up out of nowhere, right? So suddenly, I wake up and I start thinking, and I hear Monk's piano. And I'm there, well, look, obviously I got to play Brilliant Corners. So I pull the record out. It's what I'm showing right now. It's a reissue from Spain. And as I'm taking a look at it, I realize in the back, I'm reading the liner notes, and I realize there's Panonica, alternate take. So what makes this record so different? All of them don't have this alternate take. So just like a regular music nerd, you start looking into this alternate take of Panonica. I do a Google search, and instead of finding the song, what it is that I find is this thread about the Rothschilds. And you put the pieces together, and Panonica is the song that Thelonious Monk wrote for the great granddaughter of Phillips Rothschild, the richest family ever in history. She was part of royalty, and the story behind this is the wildest thing, and I can't wait to tell you about it. It made my morning. This is the shit I live for, and this like automatically makes me want every Monk album. Okay, it's great. It really is, right? So, a little background on her. Kathleen Anna Panonica Rothschild, the youngest daughter of Charles Rothschild, okay? Wealthiest family in the world at the time. Her nickname was Nika. Lived a really, really, really sheltered life. Super rich and stuff like that, but she wasn't permitted to, for example, run around in the forest or in the gardens type of thing because she would get the bottoms of her skirts dirty. And, the Rothschilds made their money in banking. So they were very much about that, an image, and she never felt like she could properly express herself, and she was very much kind of in her own head, a kept woman within the tradition of royalty and what's expected of royalty. So what she winds up doing is exactly what her parents want her to do. She meets a French baron and she gets married to him. An arranged wedding, and has, I believe, 5 kids with him. Unhappy. So suddenly, she sees, she goes to New York on a vacation, and she meets up with one of her friends. This is 1946. Dude, 1948. This story is amazing. 1948. Her friend plays her one of the early recordings of Thelonious Monk's Round About Midnight. He wrote the song, right? One of the earliest ones. By 48, Monk was definitely not, one of the giants of jazz. He was still making his name. She heard the song and immediately connected to it. Like, expressed out loud, this is genius. And would not leave until she heard it 20 times in a row. This caused her, 1948, this caused her to miss her plane trip home. She would never go home again. She decided that she needs to know who made this fucking music and she needs to track him down. Now this story gets crazier. Dude, 1948, she doesn't track him down until I think 1956. We're talking... Listen, I read this, okay, because they wrote a book on her, the Jazz Baroness. Her great niece wrote a book, wrote her biography. So, and I took this from an article that I read. We're going to put up all the links on our page, okay? So, I mean, it's pretty good knowledge here. That long, like 6 years or 8 years, to finally track him down because this guy was all over the place, right? Yeah. She finally tracks him down. Let me read it here. Okay. Thelonious Monk reported that she was named after a species of butterfly her father had discovered. I'll talk about her father. You're gonna like this too because it gets into the complex relationship of why she was so devoted to Monk, like almost immediately, right? She'd whiled away her young days in starched white dress, sewing and playing the piano. Her parents did not approve of the education for girls, and running and hiding was forbidden, lest her frock be ruined. Life was monotonous and dull, but knowing nothing else, she did not think to kick against it. In 1934, she was duly presented at court, and her marriage to a handsome French diplomat was predictable, if not the perfect match that her ambitious mother wanted. So if her mother was controlling, well, she was used to it. If he was controlling, she was used to it. She was used to living in a gilded cage. 1948, she meets her friend, right? Like I've said. While she's there, jazz pianist Teddy Wilson's there too. So she just makes it clear, I gotta meet Monk. I gotta meet Monk. It takes this long. She abandons her husband and her 5 kids, moves into a suite at the Stanhope Hotel, and sets about trying to meet the man who made this extraordinary record. She needed to know who was going to do Round About Midnight, and just waited. Naturally, it took a while to track the erratic Monk down. It wasn't until 1954, 6 years later, that she finally laid eyes on him, having flown to Paris for the privilege. So she moves to New York, and she was living in Paris with her. She was living in France with her husband, right? And she didn't go back for him. She moved to New York to try to find Monk. 6 years later, she finally meets him, and she has to go back to Paris, where her family is, or in France, where her family is, to finally meet him for the first time. Okay? She wouldn't even do it for her family. So check this, right? Where is it? Just trying to catch my story. Is this captivating at all? Because, like, I mean, I love this story. Yeah.
I live for this shit. I hope everybody else likes it.
So did he live? Okay, so the question that they ask in this article, right, is did he live up to her dreams? Oh, yes. Supposedly, she said that she described him as the most beautiful man she had ever seen. From that moment, the next 28 years, Nika devoted her entire life to Thelonious Monk. Her entire fucking life, till the day she died, she devoted to Monk and to jazz. And this is something that I didn't know. And I mean, I got 500 jazz records. I think I love jazz. I did not come across this story until now, and it's just going to get wilder and wilder, Kim. Check this, right? Her entire life. Now, number one, okay, the whole thing started with Brilliant Corners, the song Panonica. I didn't know what it was about, so that's where it comes out. As I'm listening to this, there's another thing that comes into question. You see, Thelonious Monk was married forever to Nellie.
Right.
So how does this kind of fit in, right? Supposedly it wasn't a sex thing at all. It's basically she wanted to be a patron of the arts and wanted to take care of Monk. But why Monk over everybody else? Why somebody like Charlie Parker over everybody else? Because they all knew her, right? And she was the lady who would hang out at the clubs, and she would let the musicians borrow her Rolls Royce so they can go from one gig to another, and she'd roll up in her Rolls Royce in Harlem. And Monk's kid, on an interview on YouTube, talks about at one point where he's like 16 years old, and they just pack up the Rolls Royce and roll into Harlem because she knew that there were musicians that needed to make music, and it was important. And they knew that if they went there, they would find musicians whose horns were in hock and needed to be taken out of hock. And there were people who needed food. And they found this old decrepit guy, just, drinking and just basically at the end of his rope, clearly, and went up to him and realized it was Curtis Fuller. And he was clearly at the end of his rope, but they helped him up, dusted him off, and Monk's kid went to the grocery store and bought him bags of groceries. He was just 3 weeks later, he died. But this is the kind of woman that she was. She devoted everything to her. Okay. More twists, right? Nellie doesn't come in because they kind of understood that when it comes to these geniuses, it's always this kind of idea of caretakers. Mingus was the same thing. The women in Mingus's life took care of him because he was very volatile.
Lee Morgan too.
Lee Morgan. You're talking about this the documentary on Netflix. I called him Lee. Yeah, exactly. It's just there's a connection between mental illness and just being crazy and art,
genius and art.
Yeah, and a lot of the people around geniuses and these artists are caretakers because they need it. And Nika was one of these. Now, just to tell you to the lengths that this woman went, okay. First of all, she's infamous, I guess you want to know. She's infamous as being the occupant of the suite where Charlie Parker died. Charlie
Okay.
Parker had burnt all his bridges. It was basically the last place he could go, and she went there, and Charlie Parker died in her apartment, and she was summarily evicted because of it. So she's had, I think, 24 different songs written about her, including by Art Blakey.
Mm.
And again, one step further, at one point she's on tour with them, and she needed to go to the bathroom, right? And I believe they were somewhere further down south. I forgot exactly where. Okay, but she had to go to the bathroom. Now, the sight of a white woman, a rich white woman with black musicians, is something that couldn't happen. So very
Right.
clearly, she got into trouble. They got into trouble, right? The guys weren't doing anything, but the cops wind up beating up Thelonious Monk and searching the car illegally, and they found marijuana in the car. And they were going to put him away. They were going to put him away with an illegal search. And basically, she knew that would be the end of his career, so she took the fall for him and told the police that it was her, that the marijuana belonged to her. She was facing 10 years in prison. And she knew that if she was convicted of this crime, it meant that she would be deported back to her country. Her family had disowned her because she brought shame upon the Rothschild name. So she was completely disowned. She had no idea if her husband and her 5 kids would even look at her anymore. Okay? And she got off on a technicality eventually. She got off on a technicality, but that's to the point. That's the lengths that she went through in order to just champion the music of Monk and jazz music in general. Okay.
That was probably in the 50s, right?
Yes.
Yeah. This is, cops and harassing African Americans. It's an American tradition.
Yeah. Shame.
It is a shame. We should be ashamed.
One more story.
Anyway, not going to get political. Go ahead.
We are not. One more story. And I guess this is where it is that, if I had to address Bourdain or any of this, or Kate Moss or any of this, now would probably be the time. What is it that attracted Nika to Monk in the first place? Why him? Why? What is it that made her chase after this guy for 6 years, completely abandon her family, and get disowned by her family because she was just completely cast out? She was described by other family members as, what was it, the Peggy Guggenheim.
That's who I was going to compare her to.
Yeah.
Peggy Guggenheim.
Yeah.
And the artist in the museum in Venice and everything.
No one ever, her family cast her out. No one ever talks about her when they asked about her. She's the Peggy Guggenheim of jazz. She is vulgar. So they wanted nothing to do with her, right? And so what is it that she attract? Why all this? What is it about all this? Why did she? It seems
I
crazy.
get it, but what does it say? Did you have a reason why? Or?
Yeah. Well, pieces of it. Again, the book and the biography. You guys are gonna like this, man. On YouTube, look up the Jazz Baroness. There's a movie about this. I haven't seen it either. Believe me, I'm watching it tonight. This is all new to me, so I'm really excited to be telling you all of this. As I look into the whole thing, her father was Prince Phil. I believe, who was the grandson of the original Rothschild. I don't remember, but just a direct heir of Rothschild, right? Her father was Phil. And the Rothschilds made their money in banking a lot. And he was more of an artistic type guy. So, like I had mentioned also, he named his daughter. The story is that Panonica was named after a moth. That's what Monk said. Not a moth, a butterfly. It was a moth. But anyway, her father liked to be around nature and study insects, and he had a zoo actually where he would just let people, be around a sanctuary, but that's not what he was doing for a living. He was forced into a suit and tie and had to be a banker because that's what the family thing was, and it didn't suit him. It didn't do him any good, which at one point he went into a shed and with a knife and he slit his throat. And I didn't know, but as I read a little further, it seems that you begin, again, that whole thing of mental illness and genius. You begin understanding what it is that led her to Monk, because Monk was mentally ill as well. He was a handful. Just all of these guys, man. Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, Monk, Mingus. They were all just fucking assholes. They were hard to be around.
Too. Yeah.
Who? Sorry?
I said Coltrane could be a little bit of a handful, although he wasn't an asshole necessarily.
You know, Jean-Paul Sartre, just go down the line. And it was posited that what it is that she was trying to do, basically, is she was trying to give her life meaning. She lost her father to suicide, and her father was mentally ill, and there was mental illness that did run through the family. But it was the dark secret that nobody talked about. Nobody talks about that shame. Believe me, dude. And that's the way it is for real. When my uncle killed himself, I was 16. I still don't know anything about it. And I'll never hear it because it's the cone of shame. So nobody talks about this stuff. Okay? And it is posited that the reason it is that she attached herself to Thelonious Monk was because of this illness. As if she was kind of trying to right the wrongs that she couldn't right when her dad was around.
Yeah, she couldn't help him. Yeah.
That doesn't seem like such a far stretch.
Thelonious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like such a far stretch to me, man.
Mm-mm. Me either. Plus the whole being like so super, super sheltered. It happens a lot with preachers' kids, missionaries' kids, anything where you're like very, very sheltered, that you get a little bit of a taste of it and people will run to the light instead of being, ruled to death. So I'm sure that was an aspect of it too. Well, not doing what you're supposed to do.
Well, that's kind of one of the reasons that I told the story. I mean, because I figured that it necessarily had to resonate with you and your own upbringing. And I mean, it certainly resonated with me. And you know what? Instead of just, yeah, that's my Thelonious Monk story. And now necessarily I am on the track. If you guys have any suggestions, I need a book on Thelonious Monk. I need to read more about him, and I need to own a lot more of his catalog.
Yeah, I have my fair share of Thelonious. I don't know how many, probably a good 15 maybe.
Oh, nice.
Of his albums. I really like Thelonious a lot.
This one here, Crisscross, actually that's another thing. His when Nika wrote the notes down. So what we'll do is, I guess we'll finish with this. Was there anything else you needed to say, or can we finish here?
No, it's fine.
Okay. So Nika wrote the notes for Crisscross, and this was an album that I've always had but never really paid much attention to. It's on Columbia, but now I have. It's a really short record too. So I wanted to see what she had to say in her own words, right? So I just I'm not going to highlight my own record, but she points out at the very beginning that during a concert in Berlin, she heard somebody describe Monk as the greatest composer since Bartók. So that's the way the notes start. The liner notes start right away. Greatest composer since Bartók, right?
Wow.
Genius in the second paragraph. Where is it? She talks about her wife. Well, basically the end is, the rest is pure magic. Listen, you will see. She basically, it's just a full-on worship of Monk rather than liner notes. And, yeah. That's all, Kim.
All right, cool.
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
We'll talk about your raccoon next time and my hedgehog.
Princess Trash Panda needs some time in the limelight.
Correct,
yes.
Absolutely. And Hamburger. Hamburger.
For those of you that don't know, I have a raccoon in my backyard that is, got stories.
And I have a hedgehog, not named Ron Jeremy, actually named Hamburger. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye, Kimmy.
Bye-bye, Kimmy.